So welcome, Helen. It's great to have you with us today.
Hi, so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Now, I know that you're a business strategist and you've got a passion for helping people with their Pinterest strategy. So we're going to come to that in a little bit. But what I'd love to kick off with is to ask you if you could share a little bit about your personal business story. How did you come to become an entrepreneur and start your own business?
Yeah, absolutely. So mine is not a story of being born with it and doing the lemonade stand when I was little and so on. For me, it was very much a gradual process. So I left university, studied economics, and then I went into kind of big consulting. So I went and started working with Accenture, doing kind of strategy work. And I loved it, but the thing I found frustrating was I was working with such massive organizations, governments, big energy companies and so on. And the feeling that you could actually create a big meaningful change just wasn't there. So I really wanted to kind of start focusing on sort of working with smaller companies and sort of more creative companies where they could actually kind of make quick changes and kind of implement what we're talking about. So I switched from kind of big kind of corporate into working for a charity in the UK. Actually, you might know it being from the UK, called the Prince's Trust. So working with disadvantaged young people on actually starting their own businesses. So that's where entrepreneurship really sort of started to kind of make its way into my life. So I worked there and I loved it, working frontline with people who'd had a difficult start in life to then turn their life around using the power of entrepreneurship. And that's where kind of my passion really started, because seeing just how transformative entrepreneurship can be in terms of money for sure, but just kind of confidence and sort of independence and so on, that I just loved. So I did that for quite a while, I think about 6 years or so, and then I decided, you know what, it's my turn. I caught the bug. I want to go out and start my own business. So I left my job in London, and I decided to start my own business. And as I'm sure loads of entrepreneurs find, I definitely went through a few different ideas. Tried all sorts of different things, selling some things on Amazon, didn't really find the fulfillment for me from that. And then I settled on running a property business. So I do sort of property renovations and management. And then my other business, because obviously, I'm not busy enough as it is doing business strategy. So helping entrepreneurs who have been sort of running their business for a little while, but they really need support to kind of step it up and to grow it, but to do it on their own terms. That's one of the things I love, is the fact that entrepreneurship is about defining your own sort of meaning of success, which, is something that really drew me to it as well. We're not sort of saying we have to kind of climb the ladder, we have to get promoted and so on. We're doing things in our own way. And that's something I love. So yeah, it was a very gradual journey, but actually looking back, I can see that every part of it was leading me to where I am now. And I get to wake up every day and do what I love, which is, support entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I love that it was a journey, and very often you're in the moment, you're creating something, and it always feels a little bit chaotic. You're not exactly sure what's going to happen next, and so it doesn't always feel that way in the moment. But I remember a few years ago, a lady, when I was worked in corporate, I said we're a women's network, and it was one of the women from the network there who was just starting out in her career, and now she's a photographer. And she said, oh, can I come and take your photo and do a little blog about how you've gone from corporate to become this sort of mompreneur? So I was like, yeah, sure. Well, it was quite emotional reading that story back, because it sounded like every step made sense. And I had this direct journey, whereas it didn't feel like that anyway. At every step you kind of am I doing the right thing? Is this going to work? And you never quite know. It's really a case of making it work. But as you said, it's just such a transformative journey as well, because we think we're starting a business and we're growing our freedom or our income, but we don't realize at the beginning just how much we change in that process, and that you're really open to become anything you want to and create anything you want to, and that can be a process. It's nice to see people grow, where they're like, oh, I'll just start with this small thing, and then they're like, oh, actually I could do this, and just step by step grow and get bigger. And it's great that you've had that experience yourself and you're sharing that with others to help
Yeah,
them to follow the same steps with confidence.
yeah, definitely. And I think the big thing for me as well is that when you help, one woman start a business, that then has a massive ripple effect, that influences her family and her friends and the community around her. And then we sort of start going out and out. And, I genuinely believe that we can use the power of entrepreneurship to change so many issues that we see in the world. And so that's another reason why I love it. And, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, and particularly with research shows that when women have that financial independence, that they don't keep it to themselves, that they use that time and that money and that expertise to help others, to help their family, to help their friends, to help the community. So that ripple effect is just really incredible, that in helping one person with their business, that's just a little part of the change that's going to promote in the world.
Yeah.
And I think now more than any time in the future, in the past, more people are turning to entrepreneurship. So that to be paving that path and showing people it's possible, and how big they can take things, or not, if that's not their dream. But I think to kind of pave that path of possibility for people is really really a gift to be able to do.
Yeah, definitely.
So we started, when we first met, we got talking about social media and Pinterest in particular. And it's a platform that I use, and I really, not just for pinning pictures of crochet and healthy meals,
Yeah.
which I do, and things to do with the kids, but I've found it very effective in my business. So I was really interested to know that's that's something that you specifically teach people. Can you tell us a little bit more about the role that a platform like Pinterest can play in a business?
Yeah, definitely. I am just a huge Pinterest geek. So just a disclaimer at the start, I love the platform. I used it, I've used it personally, although to be fair, it kind of ages me slightly in that it wasn't really around when I was planning my wedding. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea. But it is one of the most undervalued platforms that there is. And the big thing about it, and one of the reasons I really love it, is that it's not a social media platform. So there isn't that pressure to kind of do all the engagement. You interact with it in a very different way, which for me makes it a lot more sustainable in terms of being a genuine driver of traffic to your website. So basically Pinterest works like a search engine. So it's essentially a pretty Google. And it works on the same principles. So it works on using the right kind of keywords in everything that you're doing on the platform, and helping people to just find essentially what you're putting on there. The reason why it's so much more powerful, I find, than Facebook and Instagram and so on, is that it's an evergreen platform. So you know how you post on Facebook, and depending on where you post, it can be gone within like an hour. It's done. And you can get into kind of repurposing and so on and producing the same content, but the original piece of content is gone. With Pinterest, if you put information on there, it's there forever. I still have pins that I pinned probably sort of 2 years ago or so that are still driving traffic to my website. So it is a genuine evergreen platform that encourages people to put on good quality content, but then also click off the platform. So that's the second reason I love it. They actually want you to click off their platform and onto websites, etc. So you have to put in links rather than kind of trying to hide links and put them in comments and all these kind of things that we have to do with social media. So that's the second reason I love it. And also the third reason I really love it is that people are on Pinterest to find solutions to problems and to buy solutions to problems. So they've done all sorts of studies about it. But basically, I think the latest stat is 87% of people who go onto Pinterest end up making a purchase because of Pinterest. And that is a whole load of potential sales just waiting for you. So yeah, for me, it's an incredibly powerful platform that's underused and underutilized by people. And actually just sort of probably even like an hour a week, and you can be starting to really generate traffic. And for me, and I know for the clients that I work with as well, it usually accounts for maybe like 90% of traffic to your website. So it's powerful. You know, it's got the potential to really drive volume of traffic to your website. Yeah, so that's the reason I love it. And there's all sorts of different ways to kind of utilize it and so on. But first off, I would say really look at how it could fit into your own business, your own strategy to get people to your website.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally found it really, looking at my statistics, most of my traffic comes from Pinterest.
Yeah.
And you say it's different to other social media platforms. It's not a social media platform, and I'm not a slave to it in the same way.
Yeah.
You can just share genuine, valuable content, and that can be picked up and shared for years. I remember there was a pin that I posted years ago now when I had one of my kids were little, about this kind of tent thing you could put over a table and it turns into instant den, and that is still getting repinned. And it's because if you have a pin that people are looking for, like a solution to a problem, as you say, then it can just go on forever. Particularly, and you can obviously, there's a whole strategy behind finding the right keywords, finding the right images, finding the right titles and things, but that's the same with anything. But I think it's often overlooked, and more, I think people think of it more as a creative platform. So in terms of businesses that can do well on Pinterest, have you seen any patterns? Is it just the Etsy type businesses that should be on there, or is it global, every business should have a presence?
Yeah, it's funny, if you go onto the platform and just think of a business that you don't think would do particularly well on Pinterest, you will find it doing really well. It literally works for every business. I mean, I've worked with businesses like dog walkers, gardeners, coaches, you know, I've worked with burger manufacturers. Like, I've done the whole lot in 13 years that I've been doing this, and genuinely every single one of them can do really well on Pinterest. There's obviously a slightly different strategy depending on your business, but the key thing is that your demographic will be on there. You just have to get in front of them. That's the big thing. So I mean, I've seen like Walmart's doing really well on there. You've got, I think I found a pest control company the other day that was really doing like super well on Pinterest. Products businesses do really well because you've got product pins, so you can specifically pin your product and it will show the price and take you right through to actually be able to check out and so on your website. So it works for everything. You know, I'd be interested if people could find a business that wouldn't work on there.
Okay. And if people are suddenly out there thinking, oh, I've never even thought of Pinterest for my business, if they were to go and get started, where would you recommend they start with their Pinterest strategy?
Yeah, so first thing I would do is to go onto Pinterest and find someone that you deem your competitor. And I use that term loosely because I feel like we're more collaborators rather than competitors, but the kind of traditional competitor thing. Find someone in your niche and go and see how they're using it. So look at their boards, look at their kind of pins, click through and see what it's leading you to on their website. So it's kind of funnel hacking, really. I don't know if you read Russell Brunson's book. He's a big one for funnel hacking. Similar thing you can do on Pinterest. So that would be the first place, and that will start to spark some ideas in you as to how you might use it for your business. Second thing really to start looking at is Pinterest works brilliantly, but only if you've got a funnel in place or some kind of place to send them to. That's the big thing. So you've got to look at what within your business are you doing consistently enough that you can send traffic to it. So Pinterest loves fresh content. That's a big thing. They've had a big algorithm change recently, and it's really focusing on new things, fresh content. So are you creating blogs consistently enough, or videos or podcasts that would mean that you can start driving traffic using Pinterest? Because what you don't want to do is start it, put all the effort and energy into it, but then you don't feed the machine that is Pinterest with fresh content. So that would be the second thing I would look at. And then finally, the third thing really is to get yourself set up as a business account. So it's a free thing. You can convert your personal account to business, or you can set up a separate business one. And that really unlocks a lot of the features for Pinterest. So that's looking at your analytics, it's looking at all sorts of different features. So those really are the three things, because looking at your competitors will help you to realize whether you should be on Pinterest and you can use it. Looking at whether you're creating enough content for Pinterest will help you to really look at, are you showing up enough for your audience? And can you then promote the content through Pinterest? And then finally, get yourself set up as a business account means that you'll be starting off on the right foot. And there's all sorts of things that you can do around optimizing your account and so on, but it's probably a conversation bigger than sort of our podcast today.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to that old saying, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to start to get great.
Yeah.
So just get on there and have a play around and see. And it doesn't have to be perfect from the first moment, but I think there's a lot of, if you're present on other social media, what you learn there about things like using your headlines and your keywords, you can use all of that on Pinterest too.
Yeah.
I want to come back to something that you mentioned about the funnels there, and making sure that when you have a pin, it's actually leading people to something, because I see this is a big mistake that people make on social media, that they're posting a lot, but they're not taking people anywhere. They're not capturing their audience. They're not taking them off, starting a conversation. It's not part of a funnel. And I think people shy away from funnels or think they're really super complicated, but it's just the start of a conversation. Really, can be quite simple. I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, definitely. Funnels, I get why it's called a funnel, because it's essentially the shape of what you're creating, but it's not a particularly pretty word. For me, a funnel is about your customer journey. So I want to intentionally design every element of my customer's experience, from them first finding me through to buying from me and then beyond. So working with me, getting real value from what I do. So your funnel essentially is just intentionally designing every step of that journey, and making sure, and the mistake I see people making when they're designing that journey is that they jump their clients ahead too far. So that's the first thing. You want to think about, with every step that you're asking your customers to take. So once they're on Pinterest, if you're asking them to click on a pin, and then you're asking them to read a blog post, and then you're asking them to sign up for something, think about what is the most natural, easiest step they can take to get from A to B. So if you get them, for example, landing on your blog post, and then for you the next step of your funnel is to buy a £400 course, that is not a natural next step for them. They've landed on free content, and now you're asking them to spend £400. Doesn't work. So a more natural, easier step for them to take would be to sign up for your email list, because that's another free step. And then the next step might be to buy a, £15 offer, whatever it is. But don't jump ahead too far, and don't try and rush that journey, because you need to support them, you need to nurture them, you need to help them to feel comfortable that you're going to be there, and you're not going to just suddenly disappear, and they've put sort of their time and energy into getting to know you. So for me, funnel is essentially about your clients. They're here when they meet you. This is the start of their transformation, step A. You want to get them to the end of the transformation, whatever that is, for your products or services. That's their end point. The funnel and the journey is the bit in between that naturally takes them from the start to the end. And that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation, and I love that you brought up the idea of consciously creating a customer journey and making that as natural and authentic as possible, because this is really, people don't buy from you until they know, like, and trust you, and you can build just the most beautiful experience for them to help them through that process. You don't want to rush it at all. And I have calls with people sometimes, and they've been following me for a year or two, and they found me maybe on Pinterest, and then they clicked on something, they read a blog post, they went through to my email list, they tried out a webinar that I've done, they joined my group, they've listened to my podcast, and they've had this whole relationship with me over several months, always, before they felt ready to come forward, because most people aren't ready to buy anyway. It's just a very small percentage, but you want to stay part of their world and be adding value to them during that time, so that when the time is right, the natural first step for them is to give you a call and get in contact. So it's I like your idea of making that just as natural as possible, and not rushing people too fast or pushing them to the sale too quickly, because that's not normal shopper behavior.
No, and I think also it's when you speed it up, or you do something, do it too quickly and try and push them through the process. That's when it starts to feel salesy. That's when it starts to feel out of alignment, and it feels off for you. And if it's feeling off for you, if you're feeling something about your product, services, offers, the way you're dealing with things, your customers will definitely be feeling that as well. So it's just remembering that, take it at your own pace, and that's when it starts to feel a lot more intuitive for you.
Yeah, and there's some statistics that say people need to have a relationship with you, engage with you for 7 hours before they feel comfortable and ready to work with you. So if you think about that, you almost want to take them on the long journey because then they're getting more exposure, they're getting to know you more, you're building more of that relationship, so that when they're ready, they're really ready to work with you, and they know that you're the first person that they're coming to for help with whatever it is that you can help them with.
Yeah, definitely.
And there will be some people that go faster, but they will find their path too.
Yeah.
So when we talked about Pinterest and getting started on Pinterest and how it's important to have like the funnel behind that, what would you say has been perhaps the most successful way of driving people into for you personally? How has that journey gone, and how has your kind of funnel evolved perhaps over the years?
Yeah, so my funnel is forever evolving. I think that's the thing. I don't think I'll ever reach the point where I just leave a funnel alone. There's always a tweaking, optimizing, all that kind of thing. For me, I've actually been into Pinterest pretty much from day one. Like, it's a platform that I love to use personally, and I feel like when you love to use something personally, you show up more consistently. And as we all know, in anything in business, marketing, and so on, you can't do anything once. It doesn't work. You've got to do it every day consistently. So for me, Pinterest was always the way I drove traffic to my website. When I get them to my website, the big thing for me is really getting them onto my email list. That's the most natural thing for me. I don't try and sell to them immediately. I tried the kind of booking calls with me. For me personally, that didn't work, and it wasn't scalable because obviously I've only got a limited amount of time. So getting them onto my email list has been the biggest thing, because then I can have a longer term relationship with them rather than just sort of pitching to them once or, helping them once. I can help them continually whilst they're on my email list. So that was the easiest thing for me. In terms of kind of opt-ins, I've tried all sorts of different opt-ins. I'm hoping to be launching a new quiz actually, which I'm quite excited about soon. So I've found actually just the simpler the better with opt-ins. So just things like one page cheat sheet, rather than, I started in my journey, I think my first ever opt-in was it's like a 25-page ebook on about how to escape your 9-to-5 job, which had great information in, but just way too much information. Freebies, you want to make it as simple as possible so that they can take away one or two big actionable points, so they leave feeling like they've got something from it. But if they open something up and it's 25 pages long, I mean, I know personally, I just click away. I don't have time for that kind of thing, or the attention span nowadays. So yeah, for me, Pinterest leading into my blog posts, leading into my email list has been my biggest way of growing my list. And then outside of that, actually, the big thing for me has been collaborations. I love doing them. Podcasts, things like this, but Facebook Lives, expert sessions in other people's masterminds and so on. That I really enjoy. Obviously gets you in front of your audience, but it also gives you an opportunity just to kind of show what you're about and to add some value. And just, I don't know, most people I'm a big geek. I love just chatting about my subjects, so it's just an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, and there's two things that came out of that I think are just really valuable lessons. The first is always think, how can this be simpler? And I'm always like challenging myself and telling my class, okay, that's great, but how could that be simpler? And then seeing them adopt that thinking is great as well. And I think that's a big mistake people make with their opt-ins, is they just make them too big, too complicated, when all people need is like, okay, yeah, but I just want to do this one thing. How do I do that one thing? And just focus on helping them take that next best step. And then that, as you say, that then nicely leads into the rest of the journey you're going to take them on. And focusing on whatever it is that you enjoy. Yes. If I see people just showing up on social media, feeling they have to be everywhere and not enjoying the process. So if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to work for anyone else either. So just listen to your own heart and take the Marie Kondo method and see what sparks joy
Yeah.
and go with
Yeah.
that. And yeah, personally, I love collaborations and partnerships as well. It's always more fun, particularly when you work a lot by yourself, then that's always a nice opportunity. But it's, as you say, it's a nice opportunity to really showcase what you've got and in a valuable high touch way as well, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you think about the fact that probably 90 to 95% of people who ever come across you will never buy from you, because, you know, they don't need it, it's not the right time for them, you know, whatever it is. But if you can actually show up and help that 95% of people in a free way, you know, I feel like that's our way of giving back as well, and to kind of further the cause of entrepreneurship in the world as well. So yeah,
absolutely. And that's part of my mission with all the free content I do and the value I give out, because a lot of people are very often like, why do you give out so much value for free? And when I started my first business, I realized that, looking back, that it would have been a very different story if I'd had access to a business coach or a mentor or someone to turn to for advice and help. But I didn't know these things existed. And I certainly, and perhaps if I knew it did exist at that stage, I wouldn't have felt it's something that was accessible for me at that stage. I was, oh, but I'm just little old me kind of thing. The way of thinking. I mean, I had a highly successful business, but I just always had that mentality. So I'm like, the more I show up in the world, the more people realize that there is help available, and they may not feel now's the right time to invest, or they're not at the right stage or whatever, that's fine. But as long as they know that there are people like myself and you out there to help them when they are at that stage and they need the help and they're ready, then I think that's my mission really, is to show people what that we're here for them and what that looks like. And how we can help in different ways, and not just big large corporates with huge pockets, but the smaller solopreneurs and people just starting out. There's different levels that we can work out to help them. So that's a really important thing as well to remember, to help you
that
journey.
Yeah, definitely.
So Helen, you've shared so much value already, and I know you've really opened a lot of people's eyes to the potential of Pinterest and the importance of keeping a funnel personal, valuable, and simple. Is there any last pieces of advice you'd share with people who are out there building their business right now?
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to narrow it down to one. So I think it's something we've already touched on a bit already, actually. It's around keep it simple. You know, so much of the issues I see with entrepreneurs when they come to me is that feeling of overwhelm, and so much of that is driven by overcomplicating things. So I like to boil it down to business, and being successful as an entrepreneur is essentially figuring out and intentionally designing how your customers find you, love you, buy from you. That is it. Literally everything you do with entrepreneurship falls into those three categories. And if you're doing things outside of that, you've got to challenge yourself and say, do I really need to be doing this? Because it's not driving them to find me, love me, buy from me. So keep it really simple. And then finally, you know, it's as simple as, you know, show up, share what you know, make an offer. You know, let's distill it down to something really simple like that. And when you look at it like that, and that's the same for whether you're just starting out or you're a multi-million-pound entrepreneur, you know, show up, share, you know, give them some way to buy from you, and that is it. You know, that is everything you do should be focused on that kind of methodology.
Yeah, I love that. And if you keep it simple and consistent like that, then as your business grows, you don't have to change too much. Of course, what got you here won't get you there, but though that pattern of thought and approach will always work.
Yeah.
And I remember a few years ago, I had the amazing fortune to spend a day with a business coach in Washington, but she helps businesses at a very different scale to me. She's like, she hangs out with Richard Branson on his island, that kind of thing. But it was really interesting over the course of the day when I was talking about the challenges that my clients have in the earlier stages of business, like in the first 5 years, say, and she's working with more mature businesses, but the challenges were the same. So it's really important to find the way that feels right and works for you, because that's going to follow you through as you build and grow as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much, Helen. Now, I know you have a special opt-in for anyone who does want to get started on Pinterest with your exact 6-step process to attract more leads and start profiting from their Pinterest presence. So I'll put a link to that below. But for anyone who's out there driving or walking their dog while listening to this, how can they find you if they want to know more about working with you?
Yeah, so check out the freebie, which is just thestartupstudio.co.uk/Pinterest. Or you can come join me on Instagram. So I'm actually really new to Instagram. I'm probably only about 3 months into it, which shows you that you can grow a really good business without being on every platform. But yeah, come find me on there. I'm posting, tips, advice, help all the time on there. So that's just at Helen Munshi. So that's MUNSHI.
Fantastic. We will go and check you out, and I'll go and follow you on Instagram too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed just chatting with you. I love always just talking to people who are in business and supporting entrepreneurs to kind of get their ideas as well.
Yeah, me too. It's this whole podcast is so inspirational for me. It's like my own personal mastermind too.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you.